Every frame you notice, every story that holds you, every idea that moves culture, there's a system behind it. This is EMPath with Carolyn DeClue and Bo DeClue, where creativity meets strategy and careers are built with intention. Breaking down the tools, the workflows, and the decisions shaping creative careers. New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. EMPath. Feel the creativity.
This is EMPath, and I'm Carolyn DeClue.
And I'm Bo DeClue. Feel the creativity.
This episode's brought to you by Neon Alchemy. Story is how companies become human. We handle that part. Link in the show notes. New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Find us wherever you listen. I want to start with a sentence that's going to sound obvious for about 4 seconds, and then stop being obvious.
Okay, go.
Getting in and staying in are two different jobs.
That's the 4 seconds.
Right, because everybody treats breaking into the industry like it's one door. You get through it, you're in, roll credits.
And the door is the part everybody obsesses over. The internship, the connection, the one email that lands.
Meanwhile, the part that decides everything is on the other side of the door. You're in now, and the work hasn't started yet.
And that's the part that catches people. They get the thing they wanted for 3 years, the job, the credit, the room, and they've got no plan for week 2.
Because they spent all those years planning how to get noticed and 0 years planning what they'd do once somebody was watching.
Here's the version I keep running into. Somebody lands the gig they've been chasing. First week, they're electric. They're early, they're asking questions, they're the most prepared person in the building. Then the shine wears off, and the work is just work. And they find out getting in was the part they were good at. Staying in is a different muscle.
And the reason it blindsides people is that story we tell about breaking in ends at the door. The movie's over once they get the job. The next 2 years never make the cut.
So today's not just, how do you get discovered? It's that, but it's also the part after. What do you do with proximity once you've got it?
We've got a listener question on exactly this later, whether film schools and creative tech programs are worth it. We've got real opinions on that one. We'll get there.
But we're starting with what's true about how people get hired in competitive industries right now. Because some of it hasn't changed in decades, and some of it changed in the last 18 months. And nobody updated their strategy.
Let's get into it.
You're listening to EMPath, where creativity meets strategy and the path forward gets clearer. What's changing? What's staying? What actually matters? This is Industry Pulse.
Okay, the single biggest thing people get wrong about competitive industries is they think the front door is the application. It isn't. For most of these roles, the application is the back door and almost nobody gets through it.
Define almost nobody.
Well, it depends on the field, but the pattern holds. The majority of roles in competitive creative industries get filled through the referral or relationship before a listing ever does anything. By the time a job is publicly posted, a lot of the time somebody already has an inside track to it.
So the cold application is basically a lottery ticket.
People do get in cold, but if your entire strategy is, I'll apply to the 100 listings, you picked the one channel with the worst odds and built your entire plan on it.
And here's what changed recently, because this is the part nobody updated their strategy for. The front of that funnel is now screened by software before a human sees it.
Right, a lot of companies run applications through automated screening now. So you're not even writing for a person first. You're writing for a filter that decides whether a person ever even sees you.
Let's stay on the machine door for a second, because it's stranger than people realize. It's not just that software screens you, it's how it screens you.
Go ahead and walk us through it.
Most of these systems are looking for keyword matches against the listing. So if the job says one specific phrase and your application says a slightly different phrase that means the exact same thing, the filter can score you lower than someone whose resume doesn't show as much experience as yours, but use the right words.
So the person who studied the posting beats the person who's better at the job.
At the front gate, sometimes yes, which feels broken and partly is, but it also tells you exactly what to do. You read the listing and you use their words back to them. Not lying, just matching the language to the work you already do. Because if all you've got is keyword stuffing and the work isn't there, you're cooked the second a human gets on the call anyway.
You're writing for the machine first and the human second.
In that order. And people skip it because it feels beneath them. They want the work to speak for itself. The work can't speak if the filter never lets it in the room.
And the interview is changing the same way.
This is the part that surprised me. A lot of first round interviews now aren't a person. You record yourself answering questions on camera, and a system scores the recording. Some of them score your words, some of them claim to score your tone and your face, which is its own can of worms.
So wait, a machine watches the interview.
A machine watches the first one. A human watches you later, if the machine passes you up the chain. So you can be sitting in your room talking to a screen with no person on the other end, and that recording decides whether a person ever meets you.
Well, that's deeply weird to prepare for.
It is. And most people prepare for it like it's a normal interview, which is the mistake. You're not reading a room because there's no room. You're being clear and direct for a system that rewards clear and direct. Short answers, the key words from the role, the ones the system's listening for. Looking at the camera, not the little picture of yourself.
So the same rules as the resume, speak the language the system's listening for.
Same rule both places. The machine is the doorman now, at the resume and at the first interview. You're not trying to charm it. You're trying to be legible to it, so the human on the other side gets the chance to like you.
And none of this replaces the relationship door we opened with. It makes it matter more. A referral can walk you straight past the machine entirely.
Which is the pattern of this segment. Every place the machine got stronger, the human relationship got more valuable.
That's the part I want people to hear. Everybody's panicking about AI and hiring like it closed a door. It closed one door. The other door, the human one, is wide open and less crowded because everybody's fighting over the machine one.
There's another change underneath that. Teams are smaller than they were. A studio that hired 8 people 3 years ago is hiring 3 now, and those 3 have to do more.
So they're not just hiring for a slot, they're hiring for a range.
Right. The job listing says one thing, but what they want is somebody who covers more than one thing. The narrow specialist who does exactly one task and nothing else is a harder sell than they used to be.
And that connects us to something we talk about a lot, the studio model that solves multiple problems with one person. That's not just a Neon Alchemy thing. That's where the market's heading.
Can I add the thing that drives me up a wall about this market? Titles.
Yes.
Job titles in creative industries have basically stopped meaning anything fixed. The same title at 2 companies can be 2 unrelated jobs. Content producer at one place is a person editing video all day. At another place, the same words mean somebody running a budget who never touches an edit.
So you can't read a title and know what the job is.
You can't. And people apply based on the title, get the job, and find out month 1 that the work has almost nothing to do with what they pictured. They match the word, not the work.
And it's not the companies being sneaky. It's the work itself keeps changing. The tasks under a title this year aren't the task under that same title 2 years ago.
Got an example?
Take any role that touches AI right now. A motion designer 2 years ago animated things. A motion designer today might animate things and direct AI tool that animates things and clean up what the tool got wrong and decide which of those 3 things to do based on the deadline. Same title, the daily work just tripled in width.
So the title stayed still and the job grew underneath it.
Every role is doing that right now. A title is a frozen label on a thing that won't hold still. And nobody reprints the label, so you've got people walking around with a job description that described their job in the past tense.
Okay, so what does somebody do with that? Sounds quite discouraging.
It's the opposite of discouraging if you change the perspective. If titles don't describe the work anymore, then describing the work becomes your advantage. Most people still talk about themselves in titles. I'm a junior editor. That tells a hiring person almost nothing now.
Versus
telling them the task you can do, the problems you can solve. When the market's confused about what titles mean, the person who can clearly say what they do is instantly easier to hire. You removed the guesswork for them.
And that's a skill nobody teaches. Translating yourself out of title language and into task language.
It's a skill and it's free, which is the kind of edge I like. Cost nothing, everybody can do it.
There's one more piece of this, because the tasks keep moving. The thing they're really hiring for, underneath all of it, is whether you can keep up when the tasks move again.
So they're not hiring for what you can do today.
They're hiring for whether you'll still be useful when today's tasks are gone, which isn't the test people think they're walking into.
That's the test nobody tells you is a test. We'll come back to that one later because it's bigger than this segment.
One more, and this one's good news. Hiring moved portfolio first. People used to lead with the resume and the portfolio was a supporting actor. Now for a lot of these roles, it's flipped. They look at the work first, and the resume is just the thing that confirms what the work already told them.
Which is the fairest version of this system if you think about it. The work is the part you control completely. Nobody gets to vote on whether you made something good. It either is or it isn't.
That's the thread for the rest of the show. The market's telling you where to put your energy. Relationships over cold applications, range over narrow, work over credentials.
Let's go deeper on what it means for the craft.
The industry keeps changing. The patterns underneath it don't. This is EMPath. The tools you use shape the work you create. So what's actually helping and what's getting in the way? This is Deep Dive, Tools and Workflow.
So Industry Pulse landed on work over credentials. The work is the part nobody else gets to vote on. Let's think about that for a moment, because it sounds encouraging and then it gets uncomfortable fast.
Why uncomfortable?
Because if the work is the thing, then there's nowhere to hide. You can't blame the school, you can't blame the people who didn't pick you. The work is on the table and it either does the talking or it doesn't.
And most people would rather have something to blame.
Most people would rather have a reason. I didn't have the connections. I didn't go to the right school. Sometimes that's true, but underneath a lot of it is a body of work that wasn't ready and a person who'd rather point at the door than at the work.
So what separates the people who break in and stay in, past the luck, past the access?
They make things, constantly, while everyone else is preparing to make things. That's almost the entire gap right there, and we're going to spin this segment on both halves of it. The trap of preparing forever and the quiet habit of the people who don't.
And I want to be precise about that because just make things gets thrown around like it's easy. It isn't. The reason people prepare forever instead of making things is that preparing feels safe and making things feels like standing in the open.
Keep going.
When you're taking the course, reading the breakdown, watching somebody better than you do the thing, you're improving and nobody's judging you. The second you make something yourself, it's out there, and it might be bad. So the brain does this quiet little trade. It picks the version of progress that can't embarrass you.
And calls it being thorough.
Calls it being thorough, calls it not being ready yet. There's always one more thing to learn before you start, and that one more thing is infinite. So you never start. That's the gap we're pulling apart today. The people who break in made the trade the other way. They chose the version that could embarrass them over and over until it didn't.
Everybody's using it, but is it helping you or hiding you? This is Tool or Trap.
Today's tool, external learning, courses, certifications, tutorials, the endless library of how-to. And I want to be careful here because we just spent a segment telling people to keep learning.
Right, so this isn't us turning around. Learning is the tool. Where's the trap?
The trap is when learning becomes the thing you do instead of the work. When I'm still learning turns into permanent cover for never putting anything in front of anyone.
Give me the tell. How do you know you've crossed from tool to trap?
The tell is the ratio. Somebody's taking 11 courses and shipped 0 projects. They can talk about every technique and they've finished nothing. They've got certificates and no portfolio. Fully locked in on learning, completely allergic to shipping.
I've met that person. They sound incredibly knowledgeable in a conversation.
They sound more knowledgeable than the person who's out there working. That's what makes it a trap. It feels like progress. You finish a course, you get the little completion screen. Your brain gives you the reward like you did the thing, but you didn't do the thing. You watch someone else do the thing.
And it's safe. That's the part I think people don't admit. A course can't reject you, but a finished project can.
That's the engine of it. Preparing feels productive and it can't hurt you. Shipping is exposing. So people stay in the place that feels like work and never feels like risk. They're not lazy, they're scared, and prep is where scared people hide.
There's also a status piece to it too, which I don't think gets said enough. Collecting credentials feels like climbing. Every course is a little badge. Every certification is something to add to the profile. It looks like momentum from the outside and feels like momentum from the inside.
But the field doesn't pay you for what you've consumed. It pays you for what you've produced. And those two stacks can look nothing alike. You can have the tallest stack of certificates in the room and the shortest stack of finished work.
And the gap between those two stacks is the tell. If your learning stack is tall and your output stack is short, you've drifted into the trap, no matter how productive it felt getting there. So when is it the tool? Because you're not telling people to stop learning.
Never stop learning. The tool version is simple. You learn the thing, and then immediately you make something with it. Same week. The course isn't finished when the video ends. It's finished when you've shipped something that used it.
Learn it, use it, show it. If you're not getting used to it and show it, you didn't learn it. You collected it.
Tool or trap. Same as always. The thing isn't good or bad. It's how you're holding it. External learning that feeds your output is the tool. External learning that replaces your output is the trap. Learn on purpose, then go make the thing.
Everyone has a workflow. The question is whether it's the one you planned or the one pressure chose for you. This is EMPath.
There's another layer to this I want to get into, because it's the one that exposes everything we just talked about. All of it. The tool audits, the quarterly check-ins, the entire conversation about whether your process still makes sense.
What if it doesn't hold up?
None of it matters if it falls apart the second a real deadline lands on you. And I think most people have two entirely different workflows. The one they have on a slow day, and the one that shows up when a client moves the date up by a week.
That's true of every single person I've ever worked with, including myself. The calm version of me plans ahead, backs things up twice, takes breaks. The deadline version of me is a different animal entirely.
So which one do you see as the real workflow?
That's the question, isn't it? I used to think the calm version was the real me, and the deadline version was some kind of emergency exception. Took me years to admit it's the other way around. The deadline version is what I do under pressure, and pressure is where the work usually gets made in this industry. So that's the real workflow. The calm version is the one that's aspirational.
Hearing you say it that way changes the entire conversation for me. Because if the deadline version is the real one, then all the process work you do when things are calm is only useful if it survives contact with a crisis. Otherwise, you built a beautiful system for a version of your job that barely exists.
Right, and here's where it gets interesting, because there are two totally different ways people behave under deadline pressure, and only one of them is functional.
Okay, I can see that. Walk me through both.
The first is what I'd call collapse. The deadline hits and everything that made you organized goes out the window at once. File naming goes out the window, backups stop happening, you're working off adrenaline and memory instead of a system, because the system feels like a luxury you don't have time for anymore.
And that's the version most people default to.
Almost everyone, because it feels productive in the moment. You're moving fast, you're making decisions, adrenaline makes you feel sharp. The problem shows up later. You finish the project and you can't find the final file. Or you find 3 files that all claim to be final. Or you ship something and you have no idea which version the client has.
So the collapse version costs you after the deadline, not during it.
Yeah, every time. The bill just comes due later, when you're too tired to deal with it and the stakes have already passed. The second version is what I'd call compression. Same pressure, same deadline, entirely different behavior. You don't throw out the system, you shrink it.
What does shrinking it look like in practice?
You keep the 3 or 4 things that protect you and you drop everything else. Naming convention stays because it costs you nothing and saves you everything. Backups stay non-negotiable because losing work under a deadline is the single worst thing that can happen to you. But the beautiful folder structure with 12 subfolders, the elaborate tagging system, stuff that's nice to have on a calm week, that gets cut without guilt.
It's not the discipline that disappears under pressure. The discipline just gets triaged.
That's exactly the word. You're not choosing between organized and fast. You're deciding in advance which 3 things are load-bearing and which things were always decoration. And the people who do this well made that decision before the deadline ever hit. They're not figuring out what matters while the clock is running. They already know.
Which means the real work of building a deadline-proof process happens on the calm day, not during the chaos.
That's exactly right. You can't design your compressed workflow while you're already compressed. There's no time and no headspace for it. You have to sit down on a boring afternoon when nothing's on fire and ask yourself, if I had a third of the time I normally have, what would I refuse to cut?
And most people have never asked themselves that question.
Facts. They find out what they'd cut in the moment, under pressure, making the decision for the first time while everything's on the line. That's the worst possible time to be figuring out your own priorities.
I want to bring in something from my side of this too, because instructional design has its own version of this exact same problem. When you're building a course or a training program with plenty of runway, you can do it properly. Research, testing, revisions, feedback loops, but clients don't always give you that runway.
So what happens when they don't?
The same split you just described. Some designers collapse under the process. They skip the research, skip the testing, they just start building slides because building feels like progress. And it usually shows. The training technically exists, but it doesn't teach anyone anything. Because the part that made it effective was the part that got cut.
And what about the compression version?
The compression version protects the 2 or 3 things that make training work, even under a brutal timeline. You still figure out what the learner needs to walk away knowing. You still build in a moment for them to practice, not just watch. You cut the polish, you cut the extra revisions, you cut the nice-to-have extra activities, but you protect the framework. Because the framework is the reason the thing works at all.
So across totally different fields, post-production and instructional design, it's the same principle at the roots.
That's it. Decide in advance what's load-bearing. Everything else is allowed to go when the timeline gets brutal. But the load-bearing pieces don't move, no matter how bad the pressure gets.
And if you don't know what's load-bearing in your own work, you find out by accident, usually at the worst possible moment, and in front of a client.
So here's the practical version of this, because I don't want to leave people with just a philosophy. Take 5 minutes this week away from any actual deadline and make the list. Write down every habit in your process, then mark the 3 that stay no matter what. Everything else is negotiable under pressure. Those 3 are not.
And once you've made that list, you're not scrambling next time. You've already decided. You're just executing a decision you made on any normal day, which is a very different experience than making the decision live while everything's falling apart.
And that's the difference between a workflow and a habit you hope holds up.
Build the version that survives contact. That's the only version that counts.
Hi, I'm Carolyn DeClue and this is EMPath, where creativity meets infrastructure. If you're building something in entertainment media right now, you probably feel the pressure. The tools keep changing, The expectations keep rising, and it can start to feel like you're always one update behind. So let me say this clearly, you don't need every new tool. You need a system. It's easy to think progress looks like downloading the latest plugin or signing up for another beta platform. But the people who move forward in this industry, they know how to move an idea from concept to delivery, cleanly, confidently, repeatedly. That's what hiring managers notice. That's what creative directors remember. And yes, we have to talk about AI. There's so much noise around it. Fear, hype, big promises. Here's the more grounded truth. AI is becoming part of the workflow. Ignoring it doesn't protect you. Letting it do all the thinking doesn't elevate you. The advantage is integration. Use it to accelerate, to experiment, to refine. But let your judgment lead, your taste, your sense of story. That's still yours. And one more thing, your portfolio. It's not an archive or a scrapbook. It's a signal. It should tell people where you're going, not just where you've been. If you want motion design, lead with motion. If you want creative tech, show how you think. If you want leadership, show your process. Be intentional. If you're working full-time and studying at night or pivoting careers and betting on yourself, I see you. This industry moves fast, but it rewards clarity. Creativity gets you in the room, strategy helps you stay. I'm Carolyn DeClue, and this is EMPath. Feel the creativity.
If you found this show, you're probably not someone who needs to be convinced that creativity matters. You already know that. What you might need, and what Carol and I try to give you every single week, is the stuff that sits underneath the craft, the workflow decisions, the career architecture, the industry patterns that are usually only passed down in private conversations between people who've been around long enough to know. We cover film, animation, design, gaming, advertising, writing, and digital media. Not surface level. We go into it. Every Wednesday at 7 a.m. New episodes drop wherever you listen. If today's the first episode you've caught, welcome. Go back and start from episode 1. You'll want the full picture. EMPath. Feel the creativity.
Quick one. We're about to get into the one habit that separates people who stay in this industry from people who don't. And it's not the one anybody brags about. It's quiet, nobody claps for it, and it's running underneath every career that lasts.
That's the one we're getting into today, coming up in Invisible Move. Stay with us.
You saw it, you felt it, but you didn't notice it. This is the Invisible Move.
Here's the principle running every career that lasts in a competitive field. This week's Invisible Move is continuing education. And I don't mean the kind with the certificate. I mean the kind nobody assigns you, nobody grades, and nobody sees but you.
This is the one that pairs with Tool or Trap, right? Same family?
Same family, opposite face. Tool or Trap warned about learning that hides you. This is the learning that quietly carries you for years while nobody's watching. That's why it's invisible. There's no ceremony for it.
Walk it through the disciplines, because this looks different depending on perspective.
Let's start with instructional design. The general education gives you the foundation, the frameworks, the theory, the way to think. But the field moves. New tools, new delivery methods, new research every year. The designer who stays useful is the one who keeps specializing past the foundation on their own time. Learning the thing that nobody required yet. Continuing education is what keeps the foundation from going stale.
Let's take it to post-production. A post-production specialist learns the suite in school. Color, sound, finishing, the pipeline. But the pipeline this year isn't the pipeline next year. The specialist who lasts is the one studying the new tool before any job demands it. Quietly, on a weekend. Continuing education is the difference between a specialist and a specialist who's already behind.
And then there's the magic version of this for you.
There's always a magic version. A magician never stops working new material, even with no show book. Nobody's watching the practice. There's no audience for the hours. Continuing education and performance is the work you do for a room that doesn't exist yet. And it's the only reason the room ever shows up.
Let's think of another.
Game and animation, maybe the clearest one. Because the field moves the fastest. The engine you learned in school is already a version behind. The artist who breaks in and stays in is the one picking up the new engine on their own, building something nobody asked for. learning the pipeline before the studio is even hiring for it. Continuing education in that field isn't optional. It's the entry fee that never stops being due.
So across all of them, the principle's the same.
The general education gets you in the door. Continuing education is the only thing that keeps you in the room. One is a one-time event. The other never ends, and nobody's watching you do it, which is exactly why most people don't.
Next time you're done with a course or a degree or a certification, and some part of you feels finished, that's the moment. That feeling of finished is the trap. The people who last feel the exact feeling and start the next thing nobody assigned them.
That's the invisible move.
Better workflows don't just shape the process, they shape the outcome. This is EMPath. Creative work doesn't build careers, direction does. This is career strategy.
So we've read the market and we've been honest about the habit underneath it. Now let's get tactical. If somebody's trying to break into a creative field right now, where do they start?
Start where the leverage is, the portfolio, because everything in Industry Pulse pointed at the same place. Work first. The portfolio isn't a formality you build after you're good. It's the thing that decides whether anyone believes you're good.
And most portfolios are built backwards.
Backwards how?
People build a portfolio that shows everything they can do. Every style, every tool, every type of project. All of it crammed in to prove range. And it reads as noise. The viewer can't tell what you're for.
So what's the fix?
Build it toward the job you want, not the jobs you've had. If you want to do one kind of work, the portfolio should mostly be that kind of work, even if you have to make the pieces yourself with nobody paying you. 3 strong pieces that point one direction, be 12 that point 12 directions.
Say more about making the pieces yourself, because that's the part people resist.
This is the part people resist the hardest. If you don't have the work that proves you can do the thing you want, you make it. You invent the brief. You build the project that should exist in your portfolio and doesn't. Nobody's coming to hand you the perfect credit. You build the evidence.
And that connects straight to what we said about the market hiring for the work, not the credential. You don't need permission to make the work.
You never needed permission. That's the part that's freeing once it lands. The barrier you thought was external was a project you hadn't built yet.
Okay, second piece. Let's talk about how you describe yourself, because we set this up in Industry Pulse and didn't finish it.
Right. Titles don't mean anything fixed anymore. So when somebody asks you what you do, the weak answer is your title. The strong answer is the problem you solve. I help studios turn rough footage into a finished piece on a tight deadline. Lands harder than I'm an editor.
Because the first one tells them what changes when they hire you. A reel that does one thing and does it clean, that 8. A reel that does 9 things at 70% just makes them squint.
It tells them the outcome. People don't hire a title. They hire a result that they need. Talk on results, and you've already separated yourself from everyone else leading with their job title.
Third piece, the relationship path. Because we said referrals beat cold applications, and that can sound like it's all who you know, which feels gross to a lot of people.
It does, and that framing is wrong. A referral isn't a favor someone owes you. It's somebody vouching that you're good and won't make them look bad for recommending you. You earn that. You don't network your way to it.
So how do you build it without feeling slimy?
You stop thinking about it as networking and start thinking about it as being useful and being around. You comment with something smart. You share someone's work because you liked it, not because you want something. You're helpful before you need anything. Over months, you become a person people know, and knowing you costs them nothing.
And then when a role opens?
You're already in the consideration set before the role exists. The referral isn't the thing you ask for. It's the thing that happens to you because you spent a year being someone people are glad to know.
Before follow-up, though, there's the thing that comes before it. The first message. Cold outreach. Because not everybody has a year to build relationships before they need work.
Right. Sometimes you need to reach out to a stranger now, and most cold outreach is so bad it actively hurts you.
What makes it bad?
It's about the sender. Hi, I'm a recent graduate. I'm passionate. I'm looking for opportunities. Here's my resume. Please consider me. Every word of that is about what you want. There's nothing in it for the person reading it. They've gotten 40 of these this week and they all sound the same.
So what does a good one look like?
It's short, it's specific, and it's about them before it's about you. You noticed something they made. You said something true about it. Something that proves you paid attention, not flattery. A specific observation only someone who looked closely could make.
Walk me through one.
You reference the specific piece of work. You say the one thing you took from it. Then you say who you are in a single line. You make one small clear ask or no ask at all. The message is shorter than people think it should be. 3 or 4 sentences. The shorter it is, the more it reads like a person and not a pitch.
And the no ask version, explain that, because it sounds strange to reach out and not ask for anything.
It's the strongest version when you're early. You reach out, you say the true specific thing about their work, and you stop. You're not asking for a job. You're not asking for a call. You just told someone their work mattered and you understood why. That person remembers you and you've asked them for nothing, so there's nothing to say no to.
So the cold message plants something instead of demanding something.
It plants you as a name attached to a good impression. And later, when you do have an ask or when a role opens, you're not a stranger anymore. You're the person who said that sharp thing about their project 6 weeks ago. Cold outreach done right isn't asking, it's introducing yourself as someone they're glad to know.
Last piece, follow-up. Because this is where people either disappear or become annoying, and there's a narrow path between.
The narrow path, you followed up once, the answer was no or silence, and now what?
Most people do one of two wrong things. They vanish completely, or they pester. Both lose. The third option is you stay visible without asking for anything. You don't ask again. You just keep being around doing good work in public, so when their situation changes, you're the name that's already in their head.
So the follow-up isn't a message, it's a presence.
The follow-up is you being consistent enough that they don't forget you, and patient enough that you're there when the timing's right. Most opportunities aren't a no, they're a not yet. And the people who win the not yets are the ones still standing there quietly good when yet finally arrives.
That's the tactical layer. Build the portfolio toward what you want. Describe the result, not the role. Be useful before you need anything. Send the cold message that's about them. And outlast the no with patience instead of pressure.
The work matters, but direction changes everything. This is EMPath. Behind the work, there are real people building it. This is Listener Spotlight.
Okay, this one's good. Somebody wrote in an ask, and I'm paraphrasing, but not by much. Is film school, or Full Sail, or Gnomon, or any of these creative tech schools even worth it? Or am I better off just learning on my own and applying for jobs?
That question's doing a lot of work because it's really two questions wearing one coat.
Go on.
Does the school teach me the craft? Is one question. Does the school get me a job? Is a different question. And people answer the second one like it tells them the first.
Right. Like a school's placement rate is supposed to tell you whether you'll be good at the thing.
It doesn't. It tells you whether they have a strong alumni network and a recruiting pipeline. That's a different skill from teaching.
Okay, so let's take a minute to answer this. I've taken IDT, Instructional Design and Technology courses at 3 different schools. And Full Sail is the one I'd put above the other 2 for hands-on knowledge, no contest.
Why that one?
Because the program was project-centered. You weren't reading about how a workflow works. You were building inside it on a deadline with a deliverable that had to function. That's the difference between learning a craft and learning about a craft.
That tracks with what I'd say about a school like Gnomon. Industry specific, deep in one lane, and the networking there is strong. You're in a room with people who are already working, already hiring.
But
networking opens a door. It doesn't walk you through it. Plenty of people come out of programs like that with a great contact list and nothing to put in front of the contact when they finally ask, so what can you do?
that's the part people skip past. A school hands you proximity to mentors, to equipment, to a community that's already in the industry. What you do with that proximity is still entirely on you.
Same resources, 2 different students. One treats it like a finish line. They showed up, they paid tuition, they're owed a career now. The other treats it like a head start and keeps working the extra labs, the open studio time, the optional critique sessions nobody makes you go to.
Guess which one's still in the field when the other ones give up?
And here's a piece people miss when they're comparing schools. The cost isn't only tuition, it's the 2, 3, 4 years they're in the program instead of in the field. That time has a value, and it should be part of the math.
Which cuts both ways, though, because for some people, those years are the fastest path to competence they'll ever get. A good project-centered program compresses what might take you 5 years of trial and error into 2 structured reps. For others, the same years would have been better spent building real client work and getting paid to learn.
So the question isn't, is the school good? It's, is the school the right accelerator for where I am right now?
Exactly. Somebody with 0 structure, 0 discipline, 0 network gets enormous value from a program that hands them all 3. Somebody who's already shipping work, already self-directed, already building relationships might get more from another 2 years of doing the work directly. Same program, very different return depending on who's walking in.
And there's a version of this that has nothing to do with the degree, the resources. A lot of these schools have equipment, software licenses, studio space, mentorship hours, industry events, things that would cost a fortune to access on your own. The students who win aren't the ones with the best grades. They're the ones who used every resource the place had before they walked out the door.
That's the part I'd underline for anybody currently enrolled. You already paid for it. The render farm, the soundstage, the professor who worked at the studio you want to work at. Most students use maybe a third of what's available to them. The ones who get the full value treat the place like an all-you-can-eat buffet they already bought the ticket for.
And the relationships in that building aren't just the faculty. It's the people sitting next to you. The person grinding next to you in the lab at midnight is going to be working at a studio in 5 years, and they're going to remember who showed up. So the best answer to the listener, schools aren't gatekeepers. They're not the only way in, and they're not required reading, but they're a serious accelerator. If and only if you are already going to put the work in regardless.
If you're hoping that tuition does the learning for you, no school fixes that. Full Sail didn't make me good at IDT or creative writing. It just gave me a faster, more specific way to get good at it. I still had to show up for it.
A magician will tell you the same thing about a workshop. You can learn the mechanics of a trick from somebody in an afternoon. Doesn't mean you can perform it. That takes the part nobody can hand you.
So if you're staring down a 5-figure program wondering if it's the golden ticket, it's not a ticket. It's a shortcut to better tools and better rooms. You still have to walk through the door yourself. And that's a good lead into something we built for you, because the question this listener asked, is school worth it, is really one branch of a much bigger question. How do you keep learning in this field? Full stop.
And there are more ways in than people realize. Everybody jumps straight to the 4-year degree like it's the only door. It isn't.
It isn't. A university program is one path, and it's a strong one if you want depth, structure, and a full foundation. But it's the biggest commitment of time and money, and it's not the only serious option.
Creative tech schools are another. The Full Sails, the Nomons, and CG Spectrum. Industry-specific, project-centered, faster, built to put you in the room with people already working.
Then you've got certificate programs, shorter, focused, built to get you one specific current skill set without the years-long commitment. A lot of them come straight from the software companies and studios themselves like Rebelway, Noble Desktop, or Blackmagic Design, which has free training and workbooks on their website.
And workshops, the most underrated one on the list. A weekend, a week, a short intensive with someone who does the work for a living. Cheap, relative to everything else, and you walk out with something you can use on Monday.
And here's the thing people forget. These aren't either or. The strongest creative paths usually stack them. A degree early, a certificate when the tools change, a workshop every time you want to pick up something new and fast.
Right. And it's not one decision you make at 18. It's a habit you keep for a career. The format changes depending on what you need that year.
Each of those fits a different person at a different moment. The trick is knowing which one matches where you are right now and what you're trying to do next.
Which is exactly why we built a manual. We pulled together current creative media programs from across every industry this show covers. Design, film and media, animation, gaming, UX, marketing, and advertising. Universities, creative tech schools, certificates, and workshops all in one place.
It's free, no catch. We made it because we keep getting this question and we wanted something real to hand people instead of a shrug.
If you want it, message us on Facebook. Entertainment Media Path Podcast. Just say you want the education manual and we'll send it your way.
Wherever you are in this, there's a path sized for it. We'll help you find it.
The work tells a story. So do the people behind it. This is EMPath. Step back, look again. What changes when the perspective shifts? This is Perspective Reset.
Okay, one angle to leave people with and it pulls the episode together. Earlier I said the thing that they're really hiring for is whether you'll still be useful when today's tasks are gone. I want to finish that thought because it changes how you see every barrier we talked about today.
Go for it.
Every obstacle we covered, the machine screening your resume, the portfolio that has to carry you, the relationships you can't fake, the continuing education nobody assigns. Look at them together and they're all testing for one thing, the same thing.
Which is?
Whether you'll keep going when nobody's making you.
Say more.
Think about what each barrier filters out. The machine filters out the people who won't study the listing. The portfolio filters out the people who prepared instead of made. A referral filters out the people who weren't around long enough to be known. The continuing education filters out the people who stopped the day the requirement stopped. None of those are testing your talent. They're testing your persistence when there's no teacher, no deadline, and no one watching.
So the barrier isn't keeping people out for being untalented. It's keeping people out for being unwilling to continue. And those are completely different things. There are wildly talented people who never break in because the second nobody required them to keep going, they stopped. And there are average talent people working steadily 10 years later because they never needed permission to continue. That changes the "is the industry fair" question.
It does. People ask if it's fair and they mean is talent rewarded? But the industry isn't sorting for talent. It's sorting for who keeps showing up to work when the structure that used to make them show up is gone. School made you show up. The deadline made you show up. Take those away and most people quietly stop. The industry is just the place that finds out whether you do.
So the secret isn't talent and it isn't access.
It's that you become someone who continues without being told to. That's the trait underneath every single thing we said today. Proximity gets you close, talent gets you noticed, but continuing when no one's making you is the only thing that keeps you here.
And the strange comfort in that is it takes the outcome off the lottery. You can't control whether you're the most talented person who applies. You can't control whether you know the right person. But the one trait that decides it is the one thing fully in your hands.
That's what I'd want someone to walk away with today. Not the industry is brutal and unfair, even though parts of it are. The thing that sorts people in the end is the thing you own outright, whether you keep going when the scaffolding that used to hold you up is gone.
And nobody can give that to you.
Nobody can give it to you and no one can take it from you. It's the one part of this path that was always yours.
Clarity changes direction. This is EMPath.
That's episode 6. Here's where we went today. We opened on the one thing that blindsides people. Getting in and staying in are two separate jobs and everybody trains for the first and gets caught off guard by the second. Then Industry Pulse, where we discussed what's true about the market right now. The application is the back door, not the front. The machine screens you before a human ever does at the resume and now in the first interview. Teams got smaller, so they hire for range over narrow specialties. Titles stopped meaning anything fixed, and hiring went portfolio first because the work is the part you control.
Then the deep dive got uncomfortable. Tool or Trap took on external learning and where it flips from feeding your output to replacing it. The person with 11 courses and 0 shipped projects. Learn it, use it, show it, or you didn't learn it, you collected it. And the invisible move was continuing education. The learning nobody assigns, nobody grades, nobody sees. The general education gets you in the door, continuing education keeps you in the room.
Career strategy got tactical. 5 pieces. Build the portfolio toward the job you want, not the jobs you've had. Describe the result you create, not your title. Earn the referral by being useful and being around. Send the cold message that's about them before it's about you. And follow up by being a presence, not a pest, because most opportunities aren't a no. They're not yet.
And the listener question, whether creative tech schools and film programs are worth it. They're a serious accelerator if you are already going to put the work in. Proximity isn't a plan.
Then Perspective Reset pulled it together. Every barrier we covered is testing for the same thing, whether you'll keep going when nobody's making you. The industry isn't sorting for talent. It's sorting for who keeps showing up when the structure that used to make them show up is gone.
So one line for the road, the door was never locked. You were waiting for permission you never needed. Go make the thing only you would make, and then make the next one.
If this episode landed for you, pass it on to someone who needs it. Someone standing outside a door wondering how to get in. That's how this show finds the people it's for, one person handing it to another.
And we want to hear from you. What door are you standing outside right now? And what's the work you could start making today while you wait for it to open? Tell us on X at Follow EMPath or on Facebook at Entertainment Media Path Podcast. We're reading everything. Even if you just want the free manual, drop us a line.
Next week, we're getting into the thing everyone in this industry is whispering about and nobody's calm about. AI and the future of creative jobs. The roles at risk, the number behind the panic, and the part of the data that complicates the story. Then the fight that's defining what comes next. Credit, consent, and who owns the work when a machine helped make it.
It's a big one. Given everything we talked about today, it felt like the only right episode to follow this one with. New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Find us on any podcast platform. Search EMPath Podcast.
And if you're a brand looking to reach an audience of creatives actively investing in their careers and their craft, sponsorship details are in the show notes. Reach us directly at info@neonalchemy.nl. This episode was brought to you by Neon Alchemy. Story is how companies become human. We handle that part.
EMPath. Feel the creativity.
The path gets clearer 1 week at a time. This is EMPath.
EMPath is a partner podcast of Neon Alchemy BV. Story is how companies become human. We handle that part.